We're in Cologne, Germany at the TND Biotech Exhibition and Conference. APC Media has conducted several interviews and discussions with exhibitors and participants. We trust that you will enjoy the video clips and look forward to meeting you at the next event. I have with me Baerte De Brey, Vice President of E-Mobility Europe and CIO of Elad. Bart, welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Nice to be here.
Tell us a little bit more about your role and responsibilities within E-Mobility Europe and most certainly in terms of Elad.
Yeah, I'll start with Elad. Elad is a collaboration of Dutch grid operators founded over 15 years ago. And what we did differently than other organizations, we tried from the start to integrate e-mobility into the energy system. So combine it with the other challenges, rooftop solar, wind energy, but also demand of heat pumps and data centers. And the vision was let the battery of an electric vehicle be a buffer for the grid instead of only being an extra demand. And of course, people are parked 20 hours a day, 22 hours a day. You have a lot of flexibility in when to charge. And we even had the idea from the start to be able to discharge those vehicles. But if you want to integrate those batteries with different car manufacturers, different charge point operators, you have to have some communication between the traditional sectors of automotive and energy. And there wasn't any. So we developed some standards and protocols. First for the Netherlands, it was called OCPP, Open Charge Point Protocol. But it was quite an uptake at the Dutch market, and then the Belgians also embraced it, and some other folks asked us to translate it, so it became English. And it was adopted across Europe and even in the United States and some Asian countries. And nowadays, it's the de facto standard for communication between charging stations and the grids. So, well, that is the success of Elad. And doing so, developing it, we learned a lot from all those international players, car manufacturers, other grid operators. And you grow your network. And then, of course, it's an easy step in towards European Association as E-Mobility Europe. And I had the honor to be asked to be a vice president.
You have an interesting title, CIO. Tell us a little bit more of the acronym and what it stands for.
Yeah, it's not a regular title. It's Chief International Officer, because I do two things. And one is developing bidirectional charging, which is really onto innovation. But if you're Chief Innovation Officer, well, people like, oh, you're this magician with new techniques. But we also try not only to develop the new techniques, but also embed them in new regulation in the Netherlands, but also European and even international type approval. So, yeah, innovation is only part of it. It's also the embedding, Chief Embedding Officer, where, internationally, well, then we came up with CIO, Chief International Officer.
Very interesting. The Netherlands is considered a small country, but certainly plays a leading role in innovation and new technology. The partnership with the TSO and the DSO is quite unique. Do you have similar counterparts in the other European member states?
No, we're the only this type of organization in the world. So we have a unique place in the ecosystem. And I think there's no need for other players because we have some unique selling points. Of course, we do something with a grid perspective, well, you have other grid operators in France, Enedis, which is very big. Today I was mailing with China State Grid, also very big. But they develop stuff for themselves. They're so big. Their market is France or China. In Germany here, you have over 800 grid operators, too fragmented. And the size of the Netherlands is just big enough to look a bit across your borders, but also small enough to be manageable and be really open for collaboration with other grid operators, but also with other sectors like energy and car manufacturers. And at the moment, we didn't push from commercial perspective our standards and protocols. It wasn't even on one of our roadmaps. It just happened. And now we try to take responsibility for it, because it's not our goal or a Dutch goal to achieve climate goals. I think, with a country below sea level, the sooner we cool the earth down a bit or help the energy transition, the better. So we're happy to share.
Your test facility is in the Netherlands. You have extensive equipment. How do you operate? I know that you have a series of tests you perform. Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, developing a standard is very nice, but getting it embedded either in regulation or in the product itself is a second thing. But before you do that, a lot of things are very, very new. I mentioned bidirectional charging, but also mega charging for trucks, megawatt charging for trucks is very new. And you can be reactive and see what truck manufacturers come up with or innovative car manufacturers come up with, or you can try to facilitate that innovation and tell what grid operators need, not only Dutch grid operators, but also other grid operators, and bring them together. And a test lab is not only a lab for just testing with engineers, it's also a place where people come together and exchange ideas, and also be a place where you can take out your child diseases. When you go to a commercial test lab for certification, it's quite expensive. So you want to have a full developed products because, you pay for the certificates. But getting there, it might take some time. And our vision, the Dutch vision, is really merge those two sectors, automotive and energy. And when you merge them together, you learn from each other, but learning is also having some issues and solve them together. That's what we do in our test lab. No certification, but a lot of knowledge exchange, innovation on cybersecurity, power quality, interoperability, and much more.
But the debate on electric vehicles have matured to a very large extent. There is general acceptance that electrical vehicles are here to stay. The demand will continue and will grow. There is the expectation that eventually the combustion engine will be phased out. One of the big challenges which we are currently facing is the load stations and the deployment thereof. Within the European Union, there are substantial disparity. In some countries, for example, Bulgaria, there is little demand because of the limited number of vehicles. Netherlands and Germany seems to be in the forefront. Whilst in France, particularly in the summer vacations, there are always some challenges. Some thoughts on this?
The stage where Bulgaria is, or other European countries, we've been there as well. It's a classical chicken and egg problem. So if you don't have the vehicles around, you don't make a business as a charge point operator. So you would be out of your mind to just randomly install chargers. On the other hand, there are incentives by the European Commission. So in the AFID, the Alternative Fuel Infrastructure Directive, countries get a target. So install the chargers, and you'll see that a first-hand market or a second-hand market will develop. At the moment, I think Ukraine is the biggest second-hand market for electric vehicles, not for climate goals, but other reasons. But this is an exception. What we learned at the first stage, so 15 years ago in the Netherlands, we deployed some chargers and then some vehicles came, and there started to evolve a business case for the ecosystem. But the business case can also improve within the business case. So what we've done is develop techniques that are not only facilitating smart and bidirectional charging, but also on the hardware, efficient installing. So as a grid operator, connecting the chargers to the grid is inefficient to do just one charger in a street and then move around town to another location. It's a waste of time and money for the engineer. If you work together with municipalities and charge point operators on a proactive plan, a 5-year plan, and make a map and do the proactive permitting, and once you're there, you just don't install one charger, but maybe 5 or 6 at a time. Much more efficient, and you go to another location. Operational excellence, but we also, I mentioned that on the installation itself as a universal plug for different charge point operators.
In our brief discussion before we started with the interview, you've also indicated that you very often assist and consult on a widely basis in terms of norms and specifications. Would you like to reflect on how you involved with the municipalities within the Netherlands, or when it comes to tender processes?
Yeah, clarity in the market is also a thing. So it doesn't help for a charge point operator if he has to work with a handful of different grid operators with different technical requirements. So we try to unify that for the Netherlands. And then you have to embed that, well, that is one of my roles, into regulation. And if regulation isn't there yet, you can help municipalities with tender requirements. So not only different grid operators in Rotterdam and Amsterdam, but also align the municipalities of Amsterdam and Rotterdam. So if a charge point operator does an offer, it's more efficient. It saves a lot of administration if he can take the same offer from Rotterdam and submit it to Amsterdam. Of course, he does have to do different permitting procedures, etc. But if the technical requirements are the same, it also helps. With that input, we learned in the Netherlands. We made it a program within e-mobility Europe, tender requirements for cities. So what we've seen, the city of Utrecht did a tender, and then Budapest in Hungary was inspired by that.
From the local market to the international market, you've made mention to your collaboration with China and also Australia. The Australian one is an interesting one, particularly because solar is predominantly a source of generation. Would you like to share a couple of ideas and comments in terms of that?
Yeah, I think in the past 5 years, the focus really was on e-mobility and installing the chargers. At Elad, we're now looking for the connection with other devices. So yes, there's a national covering a network of charging stations. We must multiply that, install more to facilitate more vehicles. But the demand of EV drivers is also, can I use my homegrown energy, my rooftop solar, and put it in the battery of my vehicle? And what if I don't have my own driveway, but if it's parked somewhere in the street, we try to help aggregators with developing human-machine interfaces. So it's just an app on your phone, regardless where you park. It's not your electron going in your vehicle, but it sums it up. Also, with bidirectional charging, a Renault 5, for example, is hitting the market. Last week, BMW had an announcement where you can discharge the vehicle. So charge on a sunny afternoon, and on a cold morning, you discharge and help your heat pump with it. Also needs good communication, so you can rely on it, interoperable, but also cyber secure. And that's the next phase we're heading in.
Bart, CEO of Elad, thank you very, very much.
My pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.